Hey, welcome everybody. Good morning to those watching us live on Baseball Life, the Facebook group, the best baseball Facebook group ever out there, anywhere in the world, in the entire internet world. I am your host, Felipe and and with me, as always, is my co-host, Sean Flannery. Sean, how you doing?
I am awesome. I had a completely boring Halloween. I was at work. There was a blood moon. I thought all hell was going to break loose, but nothing happened. I came home. I watched The Mandalorian. It was fantastic. And then I got to bed early, and here I am. I was all ready for the podcast because I am super excited for today's show. I know that you mentioned we have a guest, and I can't wait for us to introduce him.
It's actually a blue moon, Sean, not a blood moon. I think
it's a blood moon. Come on now.
I didn't see any blood. Well, really quick, just wanted to point out that Sean Connery has passed away. So yeah. I made it a very special mention in my head not to call you that today, as I want to do, Sean Connery Flannery. But you might be the last bastion of that, remembering of Sean Connery.
That was my entire life. People would ask for my full name, and I'd say Sean Connor Flannery, and they'd be like, "Oh, like Sean Connery." Yeah, exactly like him. Yep. If you take the last three of my last name and put them on my middle, I guess you got it.
Yeah, and that's why that's where my stumble is always. And I've been doing a lot better lately, but I don't know. I might just do it once in a while just to kind of show respect or sky point to the great late Sean Connery. At any rate, go ahead and introduce the guest here. He's not on video. He's an audio only, but we can hear him. Go ahead, Sean.
So this guy I've been following on Twitter for a while, and he was in our 30-team dynasty mock that we participated in. Guys from all over the industry were in it, hosted by the Dynasty Guru. It set a lot of new ADP trends because it was happening during the playoffs. And the running joke was a Rosarena went, and then a Rosarena broke the playoff record. And we're like, we kept saying, there goes his ADP, another 10 spots. And, but anyway, he was in there with us, and he has always cracked me up. I love his writing. I love his insights on Twitter. The one and only Trevor Hooth. Introduce yourself, Trevor.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for having me on. What I wouldn't call what I do insights necessarily, more just seeing things and not taking it too seriously. But no, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'm excited to be here. That was a very fun mock.
Lots of fun.
Because I had no idea what I was doing per usual, so it was just a great time to all around. I mean, 30 teams is a lot.
Yeah.
But no, they have me on because they think I'm qualified to do so, probably because a bunch of other people are convinced I'm good enough to do stuff, and I don't believe them. But I write Pitcher List, Prospects Live, a few other places. Bless you, boys. Big Tigers fan here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I this is the weirdest and probably worst self intro ever, but I'm happy to be here.
And well, I don't know much.
Go Felipe.
Yeah, I don't know much about you, Trevor. So, where did you say you write? You say you're a writer, right?
Yeah. So, I write a bunch of different places. Too many to really count, but Bless You Boys and Viva Albertos for SB Nation.
Nice.
Covering the Tigers and the Cardinals, and then Pitcher List. I'm on their dynasty team covering prospects, and Prospects Live. They let me edit their podcast for a while and then told me I could start writing. And now we're in the middle of list season. So I'm a big prospect guy. That's kind of my niche. So, yeah.
And speaking of Prospect Live, I have no self-control, and I joined two Prospect Live drafts over the last 2 days. So there goes all my money.
Yeah. Smata started that last year, and he put him out on the staff pages. And I joined 3 of them, and I'm like, I'm not going to have any money left by the time I need to like pay rent or something.
It's like I kept joining, and I was like, I need to stop at some point.
And I checked, and I finished. I had incredible consistency in those leagues. I'm in 3 of them. I finished 16th, 17th, and 18th. So not good.
Hey, you're reliable. You're finishing in that middle of the pack area or end of behind the pack.
4 years left to turn it around.
Yeah. Well, and that's the cool thing about I thought these is, that it is the whole 5-year format. So you still have that time to make up the ground.
And that's how I ended up taking Evan White in the 4th round of one of those. Cause like it's 30 teams, like get your guys. I think over 5 years, I was like, Evan White's going to be a dude. We'll see.
He's the next Paulie Goldschmidt, right?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Of course. He just has a swing and miss issue. But that's neither here nor there. So just some like kind of quick to know you or quick get to know you questions. You mentioned that you're a Tigers fan. How long have you been a Tigers fan, and what led you to being a Tigers fan?
Yeah, so actually growing up, I was a Cardinals fan because I was young and in St. Louis, and that'll pull you in. In college, I got an internship with a radio station called WJR, and I showed up expecting to do radio and not be on the radio because that's a massive, massive radio station, but expecting to learn behind the scenes stuff. And they go, "Hey, we need you to cover the Tigers for us." I'm like, "I can do that probably. I think that's in my skill set." And so they got me a press pass, and I was sitting in the press box of Comerica Park and watching this team get the hell beaten out of them every single night. And I was like, this is fun. I'm enjoying this.
It's like the slight masochism that's inside every fan. It's like when your team is just absolutely getting shellacked, and it's like gotten to the point where this is fun. Like being a Rutgers fan, after the first year in the Big Ten, it was just all downhill, and it was just year after year of getting beat. And it's like, this is fun. I'm a Rutgers fan. I have something to. So when they are finally good, I'm gonna have a story to tell everyone. That's the best part about fandoms.
You know what it is? It's the atmosphere of Detroit sports that I think is just unmatched. They're all bad. They got that in common, but it's just fun to like. There's pride in these are our teams, and they just moved the Red Wings hockey, which I give or take hockey, but the Red Wings and the Pistons both moved to Little Caesars Arena, which is essentially across the street from Comerica. And right on the other side of Comerica is Ford Field. So all of the teams are within a block of each other. It's really cool. And my favorite part about the Detroit sports scene, I think, is the weirdest thing. But if you look at the right angle, if you're in Comerica Park at the right angle, you can see Ford Field in between the Jumbotron and the upper left field stands. And I think that's the coolest attention to detail thing that I have ever seen. Cool.
So I think I've finally been
that atmosphere.
I think I've been upstaged, Felipe. I had a press pass to Riverfront Ballpark in Montgomery for the AA Southern League Montgomery Biscuits. This guy had a press pass to the Detroit Tigers. What?
He's big leaguing you, man.
Yeah, he's big leaguing me, man. I invite him on the show and he makes me look bad.
Well, really quick, I just wanted to point out that Rutgers did lose to Indiana yesterday. I was thinking about you, Sean. I felt bad.
Did you guys see the amazing play, though? I know we're going in a complete opposite direction, but on 4th and 32, they had an 8 lateral play that ended up going all the way back to their 20, and they scored on it. And then the refs brought it back because the 5th out of the 8th lateral technically went forward, and it was all called back. It was very, very sad, but it would have been just enough to cover the spread too. So a lot of people lost their minds over that, but it's okay. We actually won a Big Ten game in week 1, so we're moving past that. Trevor, when did you get into fantasy baseball, really?
About the time that I got into prospects. So I had always kind of done fantasy baseball, but it was co-managing with my dad because he didn't know the players and I did, and I barely have the attention span to set a lineup every day.
Me too.
Yeah. So he would kind of do that. I'd get all the players. I always kind of did that. And then, friends in college, like, "Oh, you want to do a fantasy league?" Sure. Why not? And then I started writing for Pitcher List because it was just, I loved what they did and they were looking to hire. And I thought I could write about prospects there and their dynasty thing. And then all of a sudden, Ray Butler of Prospects365 is putting together this like expert league. And I told him I'd be in it thinking I'd be one of the fans. And he goes, "Oh yeah, we'll put you in our expert league." And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to come in last." So that was kind of that's probably like the biggest, I don't know that I'd ever won a fantasy league. Maybe I did once when I was like 7, just because I got lucky. All of a sudden I'm in this expert league because I just want to write about prospects. And so I'm like, well, I need to bring somebody on because if I don't, I'm going to be, paying this buy-in to just donate to the pot because I'm going to draft all these prospects and never try to win. So I brought in a buddy of mine who does absolutely no fantasy baseball content, even a little. And he's my co-manager. And he's like, "Okay, we're going to win now." We won the league.
Oh, wow. Sometimes you just need someone who doesn't know what they're doing.
Right. So like it was the best hiring decision I've ever made was to bring in my buddy who does no fantasy baseball content just to come and run this team with me. But that's kind of the extent of fantasy. It's just a vehicle for me to talk about prospects, and somehow people listen, and somehow I got to rub elbows with some fun people in that expert league, and now I don't know, man. It's all been weird. It's all over the span of like a year and a half. This has all happened, and it's awesome.
That's fun, and we'll get to prospects. We'll dive into your end of the pool towards the end of the show. Felipe, what do you got for Trevor?
No, I was just that was something interesting that he mentioned. I wanted to point out that he got into fantasy baseball as a way to kind of show off his prospects knowledge, if I gathered that correctly. And it's like this almost the same reason why I got into fantasy baseball, and it's just because I had this unending curiosity about baseball, and this is a great way to see if my curiosities and my hypotheses actually match up with a fantasy realm, I guess. So it's pretty interesting that he kind of mentioned that right there. I just thought it was pretty cool. As we talked about before, Sean, everybody has a reason why they do fantasy baseball. Yeah. And some of them just do it because it's fun. I forgot your reasoning behind it. I think you just like to lose all the time. I don't know.
I like to donate money to the pot, obviously. I'm a charitable person. Fan. I'm charitable.
Same reason I'm a Tigers fan. He just likes the hurt.
Well, and I'm a White Sox fan. Well, half a White Sox fan. The other side's a Cubs fan, but the White Sox fan. And I just like the big hurt, Frank Thomas. So I'm like completely, Sean asked me to be hey, you want to be a part of this expert league? Like, all right, what do I got to do? You just got to like be my partner in this. All right, fine. This was done. It's called Dynasty Guru, right? So is that the website? Is that the league? Is that just the league name?
That's the website.
That is the website. All right. Yes. dynastyguru.com.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, that was my question.
Yeah, it's the Dynasty Guru. They do a lot of have several writers. They're kind of a smaller startup, but they had a lot of great minds that they kind of picked to be in this draft. And just being in the Twitter chat, as we all like, somebody would go off the board, and somebody would come in. Well, how do we feel about this guy? And next thing you know, this isn't a mock draft anymore. This is a melding of the minds on how we all think. And there were some players where, I was shocked that people that I have followed on Twitter for a long time, they're like, oh yeah, I'm really high on this person. And then I think to myself, I hate that player. Where's my thinking going wrong? And I kind of have to self-analyze a little bit. But it was a lot of fun because a lot of people that I really admire and I like their writing were in this. Shelley, Jake Dev, lots of them were in there.
And how long has this website been around there, Trevor?
I think they've been around for a while. I don't know their exact when they started, but this was the first time I had been part of anything that Dynasty Guru did.
Well, I was very proud to be a part of it, even if I was just as in support of Sean. As it was pretty funny. Sean would like, all right, here are the players that are available, and here are the players that I want. And all right, give me a second. And I would go on the Fangraphs or look at my list and tell them, well, I like this, and the other. Like, all right, and then it would just become like this discussion as to who we should end up going. And of course, Sean has final say because he's the one doing all the work. But
well, it's like when to kind of dive into it now. Our first overall pick, we had 110, and we were going back and forth about Jose Ramirez and Trevor Story, and it was tough. But the fact that it was a 5x5 with OBP over batting average gave me I just felt safer with Jose Ramirez's walk out to strike numbers and on base skills than I did Trevor Story. With both of them, their home runs and steals seem to be just about equal. But
and I got I don't know if you could see it, Sean, or not. What I was gonna say, I have the mock draft up and running on the screen there. I don't know if you guys
we see it. We got it.
And anything that's highlighted in orange on the fantasy team right here, that's team Trevor Hooth. And anything that's highlighted kind of like a light sky blue or aqua blue, whatever you want to call it, that's our team. And I just wanted to point out, I've never done a 30-team mock draft before. It's kind of overwhelming, but I'm looking at it and I thought, we drafted a lot more players than that, but it's only 25 players.
Yeah.
The fact that there's 30 teams, so they got to be dispersed equally among 30 teams. So that was pretty intimidating for me, but it was an interesting experience. I've never done it before, and I don't know if I ever want to ever do it again in terms of like I know Sean, you're a part of like a 30 team league. I don't know if I would ever want to do it, but this was kind of interesting. It's like what we talked about, like if you want to show off your expertise or whatever, show off your baseball knowledge or acumen, this proved to be a very useful exercise to really test the limits of your baseball knowledge there. This whole experience, I should say. As it was pretty funny, Sean. The other thing I wanted to point out was it was pretty funny that during this draft, you would start talking about the turn. Like we were picked on the 10th overall, right?
Yeah.
And about, I don't know, maybe 5-10 picks later, you're already saying, all right, here are the players that I want to target for the next round. And I'm looking at you like, are they even going to be available? And I guess I'm wondering if Trevor, I mean, it seems like you've been doing this for a long time now. How early in a 30-team league do you start like looking for your next pick on the next turn there, Trevor?
Well, so what I did for this draft is every few rounds I would just look through, load up my queue, and then try to forget about it until I was told that I was close to being up. And what scared me is that my queue never moved, it seemed like. So like everybody's like, oh, I got sniped. I did not get sniped. So I'm pretty sure my team is terrible. But it was no, and you know, I had the fastest pick time just because I didn't want to hold anything up.
I knew he was going to bring it up. If he didn't, I was. Good on you, Trevor.
Well, I mean, my average pick time was like
42 seconds. Yeah.
Sure. And it's not because I was sitting there like staring at a screen. It's because like when it was 5 picks out, I just set up 5 or 6 picks and went into auto draft, like the people I'd be comfortable with. So it has nothing to do with me just staring at a screen, I promise. But no, I would, you know, I'd really start looking and thinking, okay, these are the guys I'm going to get when I'm 5 picks out. So that's just periodically checking it. I don't want to bet on anybody still being there. Like from the first round, you can see if you're watching the screen right now, I got Mike Trout 4th overall. I did not enter the draft saying I'm going to get Mike Trout 4th overall. So from the jump, I just had no plan. I never have any plan. So I'll put it out there. If anybody ever asks me, what do you plan on in drafts? I have 0 plan because I don't trust people. You know, the human aspect of it is so interesting that they're going to make all these different decisions. So I wait 3 rounds before I make my plan because I want to see what's there. I don't want to, you know, hold myself into this little corner of, well, this is what I'm going to do. Because if I can get, you know, I'm doing a mock draft for Pitcher List right now, and it's a perfect example. I'm drafting 10 out of 12, I want to say. And I got Garrett Cole, and then on the back turn, I got I got 3 pitchers. We'll put it that way. In the first 3 rounds, it was Garrett Cole, it was some other really good pitcher who has a name, and then Clayton Kershaw in the 3rd round. I think I got Garrett Cole in the 2nd round with DeGrom in the 1st round, Cole in the 2nd, and Kershaw in the 3rd. And
that's fantastic.
And so if I were going to go into that saying, well, I'm taking hitting, I don't get this amazing pitching startup. Like I didn't take another pitcher for another like 10 rounds, I don't think, except Hader, because I just wanted to max out my pitching. But, you know, so that's kind of, to answer the question, I looked about 5 picks out when I started looking at players, but overall, I don't think it pays to come in with that kind of plan and strategy just to have it turn around on you.
Yeah. I'm the complete opposite. If I'm seeing that Mike Trout's available, like I start not panic, but it something in my mind just tells me this does not compute. Why is Mike Trout available on the 4th pick? What's the catch? And I'm like, wait, why shouldn't I consider Mookie Betts or Christian Yelich in this spot? So that's pretty interesting. That's your thought process, and my thought process would be like, what the hell just happened here? Why is Mike Trout dropping to number 4? And then. Unlike you, look, it took you, what is that accurate? A minute maybe after Fernando Tatis Jr. was picked as the 3rd pick overall.
There he is. We already begin to see it.
Screw it, I'll go with Mike Trout. No big deal. Me, I'm like, well, I was gonna draft Fernando Tatis. I didn't think he was gonna go number 3, and now it would have I would have taken my sweet ass time. I would have taken not 45 seconds. I would have taken 45 minutes. I mean, especially if it's a slow draft. Screw you guys. I'm taking my time. Wait, so if I get Mike Trout, he is old. Maybe it's a dynasty league. Mike Trout is getting closer to 30 compared to these other guys. Why wouldn't I consider Mookie Betts or Christian Yelich in this situation? And
I had Mookie Betts right before or right after Trout. I mean, I don't think I had Tatis up there in the top 4.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. I look at that saying, I'm going to pick 4th, and then I'm not going to pick for a week because there's 30 teams in this draft. So I just set up 4 guys, and I'm pretty sure it was Trout, Soto, Acuna, and Betts. And I said, I'll get one of those 4, and that's going to be fantastic. And I guess I was just starting with an outfielder. But
yeah.
And just for the record, I would have ended up picking Mike Trout anyway after 45 minutes. But yeah, I got to be, analytical about this, don't I? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Trevor. I was interrupting you. You were finishing up there.
Oh no, that was it. I was just gonna take an outfielder, and those were gonna be my 4 guys. And then at some point over the next week, in between my first and second pick, I was gonna just
figure out who you got.
I think my exact message to the group when I came up the second time was, "So you guys took all the good players, huh?"
It's kind of what happens in rounds 1 and 2.
Well, I'm kind of curious. What's your thought process? If you're number 4, like Trevor is, and you're number 4, and you see Mike Trout available, but you also see Mookie Betts, Christian Yelich, maybe to a lesser extent Bo Bichette and Trey Turner. What's your thought process in that situation after seeing Soto, Acuna, and Tatis go before 3 spots before you?
Is that to me or is that to Sean?
Sean, I was asking Sean because
I thought that was just Trevor. My bad. I mean, in that case, it's like I know I was kicking myself that last year around this time I had the number 4 pick in a lot of drafts, or 2 years ago, and I was like, why am I being shoehorned into picking Nolan Arenado? I don't want to pick Nolan Arenado at 4 or 5. Back when Nolan Arenado was still in the first round. Pepperidge Farm remembers that, right?
Right.
And it's like now Mike Trout is consistently going like 4 or 5. And I'm like, why couldn't now this year in all the mocks I've been in, all the actual drafts I've been 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Like just right there at the tail end, and which isn't a bad spot to be in a 12-team league. I've noticed that Christian Yelich keeps falling down there, and you can do like this cool Yelich Freeman turn or Yelich. A lot of cool things to do down there in a 12-team league. But now it's like I want to go back to the number 4 pick because Mike Trout or Mookie Betts is consistently being there. And the fact that you could get Mike Trout at number 4, I would take my money and run. Like I'm just taking and running at that point.
No hesitation.
Yeah.
Mike Trout.
Yeah. I'm just like him. I'm picking Mike Trout in under a minute.
So 45 seconds or more than 45?
It might be 49 seconds, got to give it an extra four beats,
Well, Trevor wins the race then. So at 45, he wins the race. Oh my God, there's so much content going on. I completely forgot what I was going to ask right now. Oh, okay. So conversely, we got the number 10 spot, and something that Trevor just pointed out, like, I don't have a plan until the 3rd round. If I'm picking on the back end of my drafts, the number 10, 11, 12 spots, I just kind of wait for people to make the decision for me. And in this situation, after much discussion, we went with Jose Ramirez. So I guess in this regard, then, that's where this is the equivalent of the no-brainer pick for me. It's Jose Ramirez or Trevor Story. We went with Jose Ramirez. It seems like that's the steady pick right here. And then we'll think about who we're going to get in the 2nd round later on. But so in that regard, that's kind of my mindset on the back end of the normal 12-team leagues. Like, I'll just wait for somebody to make my picks for me, and then I come in. Whereas, and then if I'm picking number 4, then I'm kind of like questioning, wait, why is Mike Trout available? Why is he still there? Did he get hurt? Is he injured? But so, I just wanted to point out that the matching thought process that Trevor and I have, as opposed to the complete opposite of what our thought process there is. Sean, you mind if I move to the 2nd or 3rd round here?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So we wait. We have all these picks, and then we get back to our turn. We decided to go with notorious cheater Trevor Bauer, who is the king of the 2020 hindsight over there.
And this is funny for a lot of people that don't know, and I know Trevor is new to both the show and Felipe. Felipe hates Trevor Bauer, and so
Whoa. I
Felipe
don't
hates
hate
Trevor Bauer.
I don't hate Trevor Bauer. I just don't think he's I'm gonna get gross right here, but I don't think he's worth people slobbering all over him. Like, when the sky is blue, that's the best time to throw pitches. Like, okay, thanks, brother. Like, he talks the obvious, but people, oh my God, he's so smart, and he's so, oh my God, he's so wise for a baseball player. No, he's not.
I rest my case. I rest
But-
my case. But it's
But
funny
not-
because
we picked him, didn't we?
when pick 51 came around and Bauer was still on the board, and this is a 30-team league. 50 other players, the top 50 are gone, essentially. I mean, there was, I think, maybe one or two prospects sprinkled in there, but it's like 50 players are gone, 50 very good players. And Trevor Bauer just seemed like the no-brainer pick. And I messaged Felipe knowing that he was not going to want to pick him. And I was ready to sit there and argue. And the message I got back was, I guess we'll have to go with Bauer. And I was just, I was shaken. I was like, it was that easy? Like, what?
Well, yeah.
And so we picked him to not much fanfare, and I thought it was a good pick. Trevor, do you have any thoughts on Trevor Bauer?
I think he has 80 grade first name. No, I do like Bauer. I don't really have much else. He's just, I don't know that he's always the Cy Young candidate guy, but I do like Bauer a lot. I think you guys picked him in a good spot. I don't think it was a reach or anything. Yeah. By the way, this does say Team Trevor Hooth, but I would like to point out that I unofficially named them Team Extreme Reaches. But yeah, no, I thought Bauer was a good pick there. I had him in my queue, so.
Yeah, and it was one of those, it's, he almost seems like the pitcher version of Joey Votto, where it's like he's really good, and then he tinkers himself out of being really good, and then he has to tinker himself back in. And I feel like that's what we saw in like 2019. And I don't know. It's very interesting to see what he does and how he does it.
I fixed it. Team Extreme Reaches.
There you go.
For those that are watching on our video format as well, which you will be able to catch at YouTube after the fact, you will see Felipe's glorious spreadsheets and the official team name change to Team Extreme Reaches for Trevor.
And now go ahead.
I think the Team Extreme Reaches really applies more to the prospects I decided to draft. And I did that on purpose, but we'll get into that later.
I was going to say, I think I broke Excel when I did that. So that's fantastic. I'm flying blind for the rest of the show, but no, I've always liked Trevor Bauer, even as a prospect, not as a human being, but as a prospect, he was always a nice prospect, but it seems like for all the talent that he has, he took forever to become the pitcher that he became last year and then also in 2018. I mean, compared to Tyler Glasnow and Blake Snell, Zach Allen, Max Breed, I mean, Bauer seemed to be the more obvious choice in this round. So when Sean approached me, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with that. Speaking of Zach Allen, Extreme Reaches got him after us a few picks later. Anything to say about Zach Allen there, Trevor?
I'm very happy to get him. I think that I was just looking through and just saw Zach Allen's there. Well, Zach Allen is going to be good because, it is dynasty, and I just took Mike Trout, so I'm going to need somebody else who's going to be good for a few years. And I really like Gallen. I've always liked him, even when he was when he was barely a top 20 prospect in the Cardinals organization a few years back before he got traded. So, traded the first time.
Yeah, traded the first time.
So I was very happy to get Gallen. I thought that it was honestly some pretty good value on him.
Yeah, and it's one of those, Gallen, and then you kind of look at some of the starters that went right after him, Fried and Burns and Luzardo, and it's like they all seem to be like in that same cluster. And it's one of those where I don't think you could have gone wrong with either one of them. I like Zach Gallen a lot. Anytime a pitcher has a full arsenal and a killer changeup, I'm just like, I'm tripping head over heels to pick them in every draft. So, and then Joey Gallo is your next one, which I felt was you were shocked by the fact that you auto drafted, or I'm not sure what it was. It's like it almost seemed accidental when you picked Joey Gallo.
Yeah, I was at a pumpkin patch with my girlfriend and some friends. And so I was on auto draft, and so I put in the group. I said, "Hey, just let me know who I get." And I put
and we let you know.
Well, and he was either the top guy or the second guy. I didn't think I'd get him. I thought I was more going to get who would have gotten taken right. I mean, I think I had maybe Carlson right behind him.
Wow.
You know, maybe Woodruff. I don't but Gallo's one of my guys that I always try to draft, and it goes off of the philosophy that won my buddy and I the P365 Experts League of walks and home runs offensively. That's all he does. That's all he wants to draft. So Gallo
Sandy Alderson, is that you? Sandy Alderson, is that you?
Yeah. So I was like, well, the Gallo would be great here because I don't.
And it's an OBP
the entire
league.
theme of this is I'm not going to buy too much into the 2020 stats.
Yep.
I'm just not. Like, if they were really poor, if they were really good, I'm not going to buy too much into it. They were in the middle, I'll probably be a little more happy. But with Gallo, I just thought it was a great pick to get in the third round. I mean, that's all it comes down to. I was surprised.
And especially in an OBP league, home runs, he'll chip in some stolen bases as well. So I thought it was good. I just remember like when you text in the chat, you're like, "So Joey Gallo, eh?" I was just like, I think he just found out.
Yeah, I was at a pumpkin patch. We got a pumpkin. Also got spaghetti squash that we made for dinner. It was pretty good.
Oh, that's such I was not expecting a story about a pumpkin patch and spaghetti squash when I asked about Joey Gallo, but that was absolutely perfect. How he just, and there I was in a pumpkin patch.
It is Halloween, by the way,
Yeah.
so or Halloween weekend, so it is appropriate enough there. The great pumpkin. Speaking of pumpkin, Carlos Correa, it looks like it's a reverse pumpkin there, Sean, huh? It looks like the clock struck 12 and he became the Carlos Correa we all fell in love with before the injuries started popping up. And the running gag between Sean and I is like, we're just going to get every cheater known to man. So Carlos Correa.
Yeah, the entire draft, we tried to figure out how each player would cheat, has cheated, or will cheat. And of course, Carlos Correa figures into the has cheated. Even though that's more of our podcast partners over at Dong City. That's the hot take, and that's more of their environment. But Carlos Correa here, he's still really young at what is now deep position, but I still think the offensive upside for him, and I think the same way about Corey Seager, is like they've had down years since him and Seager. And it's like people are just forgetting how good offensively they are and can be. So I thought this was a great pick for Carlos Correa. Even though in a redraft league, it's like, he's starting to drop into like the 120s, 130s, and I've seen like 150 one time. I think that was last season. But in a dynasty league, obviously we need to pick him a little bit sooner because of his age. And he's still right in the smack dab middle of his prime.
I just wanted to point out that everybody's hero, Trevor Bauer, has also, there's been rumors as recent as yesterday on the Ben Lindbergh show about him also cheating and doctoring balls. So, yeah, there's no heroes in baseball, just a bunch of guys trying to stay in the show. Speaking of the show.
The Detroit Tigers probably haven't cheated.
Or maybe they're just bad at it.
If they are, that makes me even more sad.
All right, let's go with the fourth and fifth pick. Sean, I don't know if we're going to do all 25 rounds here. It's up to you. You tell me.
We'll just do rapid fire.
Rapid fire. So Jeff McNeil, that was also a big discussion between you and I, but ultimately I do like this scrappy little flying squirrel. So that I went ahead and greenlit that one. And
he was I think the thing that made me be able to rationalize it as a Mets fan. And of course, Felipe had to listen to me. I probably recommended every Mets left-handed hitter known to man. Speaking of the top Mets left-handed hitter that went in this draft, wasn't Michael Conforto, and it wasn't Jeff McNeil. It was Dominic Smith, went like at, I think, the end of the second round, and right at the turn. And it was one of those, they talked about it on Dynasty's Child, the Dynasty Guru podcast that who was all on it, Keats, Shelley, and Jordan. And they talked about Dominic Smith, how early he went. And it's one of those, if you really want Dominic Smith, you're going to have to pick him there at that turn because he's probably not going to be there in another 60 picks. So I thought that was a very interesting high pick of Dominic Smith. But Jeff McNeil has posted OBPs his first 3 years in the league, all within 5 points of each other at 384, 383, and 381. Has burgeoning power, is going to hit towards the top of the lineup. I thought it was a no-brainer pick.
And then Trevor went Ian Anderson and Marcus Semien. I feel like Sean is really low on Marcus Semien, and we've talked about Ian Anderson so much that I don't know. Trevor, give me one little nugget about Ian Anderson that people might not know about him.
People might not know that I said I would not pay the price for Ian Anderson in drafts for next year, and I took
Psych.
Well, you know what? It was because when I was watching him coming up, I was like, what's happening? I think it might have been bad camera angle. It might be I watched the wrong starts, but I didn't see the third pitch, and for the life of me, I can't remember if that was a changeup or curveball without looking at my notes. But I didn't see the third pitch, and then I saw him in the playoffs. I saw the third pitch, and I was like, oh. So this is kind of just an overcorrection, I think, for me on where I was on Ian Anderson and then picking him. It's definitely I think this was the first of the extreme reaches. I thought Semien was fine. He was just kind of there.
It's Anderson I'm low on. I actually like Semien. I think he's going to be a steal. I think he's going to go somewhere a much more friendlier hitter ballpark, and I think he could do some damage. But yeah, Anderson I've always been low on, but I think I'm higher on him than I am some of the other Atlanta arms. Just because he has that changeup and command.
It's just what I saw from him in the playoffs, and I go, well, we'll go recency bias. We'll just take this. I think it'll be okay, and I'm not going to pay for him anymore. This draft is fake. So
this draft is fake. Fake drafts.
Fake drafts. It's the fakest draft. And Marcus Semien, I forgot why do you hate him so much, Sean?
I don't hate Marcus Semien. I like Marcus Semien.
See, now you know how it feels. Yeah, now you know how it feels. Go ahead.
And there's a Rosarena.
Yeah, there goes the Rosarena. And he was 129. And then I think since he got picked there, I have seen him go as high as like 79 in some dynasties and some mocks. And it's like,
can I address that real quick?
Yes, go for it, please. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
He was a Cardinals minor leaguer. I saw bunches and bunches and bunches of him. I always thought he was so fun to watch. I thought he was great. I mean, if you type his name, Randy Rosarena minors or minor league or whatever, into Twitter, you see an infield triple. Like, he is a fun baseball player. He is not the playoff baseball player that we saw. He'll be good, but I recommend to anybody listening, do not pay the price for Randy Rosarena.
I agree.
That's all I got.
I agree. I think he's a very good hitter. I don't think he's some 30, 40 home run guy. Like, he hit 10 home runs in a postseason. Okay. Daniel Murphy hit 8, and we've seen other guys. I mean, it's people get hot and they go and do crazy things. That's not
when his price comes down in 2022. Then I'd say draft.
Yeah, then we'll jump back in.
Yeah,
man, I don't even remember Rosarena. Like, when I was doing my 2020 pre-draft preparation, I don't remember him being mentioned or me even being interested. And all of a sudden, he's just become everybody's favorite player. There was also who he reminds me of, the hype that's surrounding Rosarena right now, Sean and Trevor. The guy from Cincinnati, Aquino,
I think I buy into a Rosarena a little bit more than Aquino, but yeah, I get the same, like, the complete elevation and hype. Except Rosarena hasn't had a down month that kind of soured everything. Granted, like, in the playoffs, it wasn't until the World Series that he actually had a hit with a runner in scoring position. He went 0 for his first 7 with runners in scoring position, but had 9 home runs. And I'm like, what?
Well, chicks like the long ball, man.
Yeah. Walks and home runs, right?
So getting back to Marcus Semien. Okay, so Trevor, give me one thing you like about Marcus Semien, and I want to hear one thing from Sean that he doesn't like about Marcus Semien. So go ahead, Trevor.
I mean, really, Simeon's not even one of my guys. I just thought he was, a reliable option at shortstop here, and I was trying to build a contender because that's how the first few rounds fell for me. So, I mean, that was kind of why I took Simeon there.
And Sean?
And why I don't like him.
Yeah.
Because he plays for the A's. And that's a bad ballpark for him.
Love it. Zack Wheeler, we all know who Zack Wheeler is, former Mets. So, of course, Sean had to target him because he was targeting all the Mets players and all the ex-Mets players.
Yes, so, that's where you get your values when they're no longer Mets. But lots of innings, quality starts. I thought it was a no-brainer to pair up with Bauer. Just we got a lot of innings eaters in those first couple of starters that we picked, and I thought that kind of fit the theme.
I like our 1-2 punch here with Bauer and Wheeler. And plus, Wheeler always has a nice special spot for me because he was one of the first players that I can remember vividly back in my little office in 2013, in the winter of 2013, just looking at scouting reports and like, hey, this guy could be something, but he has no secondary pitches. So that was way back.
But now he does. It's okay.
Now he does, yeah. Mark Canha or Canha. Yeah, Sean was all over this one. He wanted him some Mark Canha, and I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm not
OBP League.
Yeah, whatever. It's meh. I'm not excited for this one, but it is an OVP league.
It was a reach, but I felt like in an OBP league, it was more explainable.
Yeah, and then Trevor comes back to back with Mike Moustakas and Evan White, who I feel like you just mentioned earlier on this podcast. What'd you say Evan White was going to be the next what now?
I said Evan White was going to be the next Paul Goldschmidt, but he said he picked Evan White in the 4th round of a couple of dynasty drafts. So
well,
the price went down. The price went down.
Last year after he signed that massive contract, and as soon as I took Evan White, I was kind of happy with it because I'm thinking I have a decent first baseman option. And then a few picks later, somebody took Tristan Casas, and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Oh, it's sad. But no, I liked we'll skip Moose is another one of my guys. I was glad I got him. And then Evan White, I'm happy with, but I got immediate regret when somebody took Tristan Casas.
And I see George Valera also, and Nate Lowe getting picked. And my question to you guys is, me, and this is one of the discussions Sean and I had behind the scenes when making these selections, where Sean was like, okay, we need to go after these prospects. Like, why? Can we build our roster first? But it's a dynasty league, and I want to win next year, even though it's a fake league, right?
Yeah, it's like I want to win.
It's a fake of a fake league, right? It's a mockery, if anything. But I'm just worried. Like, no, I'm drafting for 2020, and I only want to pick prospects. What do you call it? If I know they're going to be called up for sure early on or in mid 2020. So I guess Trevor, we'll start with you. What was your strategy in terms of getting prospects in this mock draft?
Usually I have a problem and I'll pick prospects always. I decided to go against that. And it was because I wanted to see what I could do. I mean, I knew I had guys, low-key guys who I think are going to explode, and I got all of them, which just made me happy. But like I said, usually I'd be one to go for all the prospects and see if I can build a fantastic farm system, because that's how you win. And but then, then I got the 4th pick and I'm like, well, I kind of want to compete now. So at that point I said, I'm going to hold off on prospects as long as possible. So usually I would take prospects. This one, I thought, well, I'll see if I can find the diamonds in the rough, or the guys I think are going to be the diamonds in the rough.
And then, of course, Sean and I went back at number 10, in the 10th round with Kevin Gausman. In the 7th round, sorry.
Yeah, 10th pick of the 7th round. There we go.
Thank you. With Kevin Gausman, who I was high on coming into 2020, and I pushed hard for him in this mock draft because I thought that, as long as he's with San Francisco, he's going to flourish over there.
Well, now he's a free agent. But once again, we had like this theme of our starting pitching in our outfield were all these like 29, 30-year-olds that aren't really – I feel like they're the values in a dynasty draft because they're not super young, but they're not super old. And so people don't really know where to properly pick them. And it's about picking your moments with them. Same thing with Mark Canha and like Zack Wheeler to an extent.
All right, let's move on. And speaking of prospects, there's our first one of note, as I was not for this one, but again, it's my team, but it's not my team. This is Sean's vehicle that he's driving. And I'm like, no, not a catching prospect, but young. Go ahead, Sean. Give me one good point as to why Dalton Varsho, was the catcher from the Diamondbacks, was the way to go in the 8th round here.
Because even if he doesn't end up as a catcher, we get an outfielder that's going to steal 20 bases. And he posted better OBP numbers in the minors than I realized, so that kind of made it a little bit more plausible for myself.
Trevor goes back-to-back with a couple of veterans here. Stable, maybe. Paul DeYoung and Hunter Dozier. I'm a big fan of Hunter Dozier. I don't know if I'm a big fan of his in a dynasty league, especially a 30-team dynasty league. But obviously, Trevor, what made you go with the back-to-back veterans here?
Compete now, DeYoung. So with DeYoung, I wanted to get depth, and I know that I hadn't filled out a roster yet, but I like DeYoung a lot, and 3-person benches. I just want a guy that, if somebody goes down, I can plug him in. So that's why dual positionality on Moose is helpful. Getting a guy like DeYoung who can sit in my util spot and then fill in if Simeon gets hurt or doesn't play well or whatever. And then Dozier, I think, also plays a couple of positions, and so both of them I feel like are going to hit. And the fact that I can move a couple of them around and add some depth was really, really helpful, I think.
I am a big fan of versatility, even in fantasy. I do like playing musical chairs with my lineup, as I am a big fan of that. So I can agree with you in that regard. Really quick, Edwin Diaz goes in the next pick. As
he was only the second RP off the board, which was like shocking to me.
RPs didn't go.
And this was what happened was, this was going into our long turn, and I told Felipe, it's like, I want to pick one because I feel like I think the only pitcher, Hader, had gone like a round before this, and nobody had picked an RP after Hader. And I was afraid that in that long turn, we were going to sit there and somebody was going to pick an RP, and then the next person was going to pick, and they were just all going to go within like 50 picks of each other. So I said, let's just go ahead and pick one. And we had it down to Diaz and Karinchak and a couple others. But Diaz just felt like the best combination of young, upside, and still somewhat proven track record. So that was our pick.
And if I remember that discussion, it was between Diaz, James Karinchak, and Liam Hendricks.
Liam Hendricks. Yeah.
So that was an interesting back and forth, and ultimately, Sean wanted to go with the Mets player. So let's quickly move to the next rounds in our little draft here. Was this round number 10 still on the back end, David Peterson, because Sean wanted to pick another Mets player? No, but he showed me the rest of the pitchers that were available, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess Peterson's the way to go. He seems to be the more stable guy.
And another just random innings eater that, isn't probably as glorious. And I feel like innings is like the most least appreciated part of fantasy. It's like, yes, it's not often a scoring category in itself, but it's a vessel that you will get a lot of wins, a lot of quality starts, and a lot of strikeouts the more innings you have. So,
yeah, and I'm looking at the rest of the list, and he was right. I mean, I'm not very excited about these other pitchers that were taken: AJ Puke and Clark Schmidt, Mitch Keller, blah blah blah. So yeah, it was a very stable, steady pick there. Austin Nola, who I'm a big fan of, went. I would have preferred Austin Nola over Dalton Varsho, but that's just me.
Ooh,
taking him. Hey, man.
Trevor, what are your thoughts? Dalton Varsho versus Austin Nola?
Well, I don't like to speak on Varsho because I didn't even know he had outfield versatility until this year. Sometimes guys just slip through the cracks like that, but I thought Nola was solid in both of these two picks. Austin Nola and Shane Baz came because of the group chat specifically.
Yeah.
Like we had this conversation about how, catchers are more valued in 2 catcher leagues. And then I believe Jesse Roach said something like, 30 teams is the equivalent of 2 catchers. I'm like, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I took Austin Nola. And then right after that, we started a conversation about there's one top 100 mystery prospect left. And I completely changed everything I was doing because 1, it was a mystery prospect and I wanted to be right. And 2, I realized who it was. I was not even, he was not even on my radar. I assumed he was gone, but I am a big fan of the electricity in Baz's arm.
Yeah.
I know there's reliever risk. I don't think he will end up a reliever. I think that his pitches are there. But even if he does, he'll be a pretty darn good one, I think. So I was super excited to get Baz, even though I wasn't looking at him.
Yeah, when the bystander, I can't remember who it was on Twitter, said that they were going through all of our results, and here we were 300 plus picks in, and there was still a top 51 out, or top 50, top 100 guy out there. And my mind immediately went, and it ended up being he went soon after Boz, I believe, and it was Ronnie Mauricio. And being a Mets fan, I'm actually not big on Mauricio as a prospect, which is like blasphemy to say in Mets world. But I'm not as high on him. And then I was like, well, maybe it's Xavier Edwards, but who gets excited and makes a tweet about Xavier Edwards being a mystery prospect? I mean, according to Blake Snell, he's just some slapdick prospect. Yeah. But then it was like, you pick Shane Baz, and I was like, well, maybe it was Baz. And working in the Montgomery, which is the AA affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays, we had a lot of Tampa scouts come through. And I remember the one that I talked to the most, he was real friendly, older guy, and he was just raving about Shane Baz. And he said, oh my God, it's just like everything coming out of his hand is just 100% effort, touches high velos without much effort. Actually, like I likened it. I said, like, kind of like Zack Wheeler when he throws, and he said it was kind of a lot like Wheeler. You know, he's throwing hard, but it doesn't look like he's throwing hard. And I'm really excited for Baz, and I thought that was a great pick.
Yeah, again, changed everything. I actually thought it might have been Sanchez from Miami because I saw him out there too, outfielder in Miami. But yeah, no, Baz, I was very happy to get him.
All right, we're quickly, if not already there in the 1 hour mark, so let's just go through these really quick. Alex Dickerson,
continuing the 30-year-old late breakouts like Mark Canha. I thought he was and over his last 162 since being traded to San Francisco, I pulled up the numbers. He was a 140 WRC plus guy since being traded to San Francisco. And I'm like, why is nobody, and it was a pretty big sample size. It was like 380 plate appearances. Yeah. And I'm like, this is something I'm buying into. And if not for this mock, I probably wouldn't have ever even thought about Alex Dickerson in other drafts.
All right. Let's move on to Yandy Diaz. That is a Sean.
That I will pick Yandy Diaz in every single draft. It's a problem.
Everybody likes him but me. But I mean, I see upside. I don't know. That's just I'm weird like that.
Yandy Diaz will find you and kidnap you and crush you with his biceps.
I hope he does. I mean, it'd be something that he's been doing, right? Spencer Turnbull, kind of a homer pick here for Trevor, going number 357th overall. And Trevor follows that up with Dallas Keuchel. I'm assuming that Trevor wanted to fill out his rotation. Is that correct?
Needed pitchers. Yep.
Yeah. It once the pitchers go, it's like you feel like you need to get them and fill it out. Hey, and Spencer Turnbull is a homer pick for me. I'm in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Turnbull is a UA product. I really like his breaking ball. I thought it was a good pick. I still think that there's another level for Turnbull.
I mean, if you watch Turnbull when he's on, that's the best. This is the best value pick of the draft. But unfortunately, he's extremely inconsistent. That's why this is probably a reach.
Yeah.
Miguel Andujar, a man with no position, but he still has some upside. This one was we were kind of murky about it, but you know, I still like Andujar. I still believe in him. I am a Miguel Andujar truther, so to speak. Sean reluctantly picked him, but
I did not want him. I think it's partially, if it was a batting average league, I would have loved the pick. In an OBP league, I'm really low on him, especially if he gets traded. It's like I don't know. Trevor, how did we do with the Andujar pick? Like, was this the right spot to get him? Is it a complete wasted pick? I don't know.
No idea. I had him in my queue, and I almost took him, and then I thought, let's see how far he falls. Because that's the beautiful thing about these mocks. That's the beautiful thing about these mocks is that if you don't know, you can just wait and see because you can take somebody else. So I kind of was watching just to see where he went.
It's like you see a car like on a racetrack, and they're about to crash, and they're swerving left, swerving right, swerving, and it's like, how many times is he going to swerve before he crashes out?
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at on him. I had no idea. I thought of him. I had him in my queue just to see if he disappeared, and then he went away. And it was at
and he was suddenly no longer your problem.
Well, it's always good when someone else makes a decision for you, as I attested to earlier in my assessment with the having a back end of a league. What's that?
It's gonna be a fun turn.
Yeah.
Just looking at who's here.
TJ Antoni Antoine? Well,
Antone, I believe. Yeah.
From the Reds, pitcher.
Baseball savant, savant darling. What's the phrase that everybody hates? Savant sweetheart, something like that. Kyle Bodie sprinkled some magic driveline dust on TJ Antone and turned him into an overnight stud, and I really do like him. And with the Reds possibly losing Bauer and Wade Miley being like just a warm body who I don't even think can pitch anymore, I think TJ Antone has so much upside on that team.
All right, and then here's Trevor going homer on us again. Isaac Paredes.
There we go.
That we found out today, and Nick York, who I will admit and say I don't know anything about Nick York whatsoever. Trevor, what can you share about Nick York here? Shortstop.
Yeah, so we'll start Curtis real quick. Probably reach, but if you watch his at bats, it's very professional at bats. Like he's got such great contact rates and such good feel for the strike zone that I there's no way he's not going to hit. I'm confident in that. Nick York, I took him as one of the prospects to make a statement that people should be watching Nick York. I don't know how big this platform is to make that statement, but I did it anyway because I was watching. The Red Sox were great about broadcasting their alternate site, and Nick York was their first rounder this year. Nobody'd heard of him. But the Red Sox,
a lot of Red Sox fans were mad. I was about to say this was the Red Sox first round pick guy, right?
Yes. Yeah. So they didn't have a second round pick, so they just went and got their guy because he wouldn't have been around in the third round when they got Blaze Jordan. So, like Nick York, people are going, well, why would you take this guy? And so I had just written about Brian Mata for Prospects Live, and Ralph Lifshitz messaged me. He goes, "Hey, Mata's going to pitch at the alternate site today if you want to watch." I go, "Great, thank you." And then all of a sudden, the announcers are going, and here's Nick York for his first at bat at the alternate site. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. The dude rips a double. He just showed up and said, all right, let's just start raking, and he looks so good. He at the alternate site, he was only there for a few days, but he was just hitting the cover off the ball. And I am now fully bought into Nick York as a baseball player and as a hitter. And I think it was a great pick by the Red Sox in the first round, actually. And I see why they like him a lot. So this was my statement of start paying attention to Nick York.
Okay, and two questions here. One, was it you in the chat that made the Pedroia comp, or was that somebody else?
So I would have brought it up. I was researching Nick York right after they took him, and I have not been able to find this since. It was on Yahoo somewhere, but the PD guy, one of the PD guys with the Red Sox said they saw Dustin Pedroia in him, which I thought was wild.
And I've heard there was a good makeup too there, a lot like Pedroia, about, the mental aspect side of it. And secondly, I'd also like to point out this was probably the largest time gap between his picks in the entire draft. An hour and 15 minutes. Come on, you're slacking here. Come on.
This is what kept me over 40 seconds.
Moving along, Garrett Cooper. Sean wanted him, so he got him.
Well, first base was gone. That's and I thought that he had the highest upside left. I mean, first base was just a barren wasteland.
I remember that we made a point to just wait at first base, figuring that whoever we draft is gonna.
We'll get Brandon Belt. Now. Brandon Belt was the guy that we kept talking about.
Did we get Brandon Belt?
No, we didn't. He went before.
Waited too long on Brandon Belt. But yeah, I remember that. Hey, if anything, one of these guys that we just drafted will become a first baseman, so whatever. And then we didn't get Brandon Belt, so we ended up with Garrett Cooper. So Francie Cordero, I remember Francie when he was with the Padres and highly regarded. Now he's at the Royals with cheeses. It's whatever. It's Cordero. You like him.
It's like the power speed upside, and we needed another outfielder. And I thought he kind of, if our team lacks anything, it's power. Yeah. And I think Francie has that in spades.
And then Trevor goes back-to-back relief pitchers, or I don't know about Enoli Paredes, but or is it just because he's his last name is also Paredes that you wanted to get Enoli as well?
I got him because of somebody who I trust a lot says Enoli's a beast, and I go okay, and I took him. That's it. That's my only explanation.
All right, moving on to pitcher Emmanuel Clase,
I believe.
Was he was part of the Corey Kluber trade?
Yeah, he was like the big piece that they got back in the Kluber trade, and of course he popped for the PEDs, which I don't know what he could have been taking because he was a stick to begin with. But he's the 100-mile-an-hour cutter. I mean, it's like insane. And now with Brad Hand being, they turned down his option and they waived him. It's like, I think Clase and Karinchak are going to be the two big guys who just see their shares skyrocket.
The freaking Cleveland Indians, man. I don't know how they do it, but it's a pitching factory over there. Out of necessity, obviously, but still. Moving on, Omar Narvaez. Oh my God, this is ultimate Felipe shaking his head, but this is not the way I normally do catchers. But I mean, it's a decent pick, especially since we got Dalton Varsho to get the last bastion of catcher productivity in this 30-team league. So Omar went out.
The main reason I still pick Narvaez here is one is, he has a full-time starting gig, and two, like Trevor was saying earlier, I'm not putting too much stock into the 2020 stats when they're in the extreme bad or the extreme good. Narvaez was in the extreme bad, but you look at the 3 seasons before that, he was a pretty consistent hitter, probably one of the most consistent hitters at catcher. And I'm not going to forgo that. And to get at overall 531, I thought it was a really good pick. But you hate lefties and you hate catchers, so obviously this is your least favorite pick of the draft, probably.
Narvaez would have been somewhere buried in like the top 15 on my catcher list, but that's just me. There's like me. I think Salvador Perez would have the world out of Salvador Perez, and
I hate him. And that's why the show works.
And I wasn't looking for Salvador Perez. I just Anyway, we're not here to talk about that because we're running out of time. I just wanted to point out that Jacoby Jones, another Tigers homer pick by Trevor.
So was Iglesias.
And so was Iglesias. Yes. So Iglesias, the scrappy shortstop from the Orioles now. At least that's what's listed here.
I was going to say Iglesias was hitting like 400 and like had a slugging percentage over 600, but he didn't have a home run. I think he only had like one home run or a couple home runs, and he had like a slug over 600. It was when the Mets played the Orioles. That's what Gary Cohen was like so surprised. He's like, he doesn't have any home runs and he has a slugging percentage this high. He was just hitting double after double. I never thought I would hear this phrase. Jose Iglesias was their DH. Like, what?
Yeah, but you're talking about this late now. This is my third option at shortstop, just filling out bench of a guy who's going to get consistent at bats because he's going to hit the ball, and he plays in Baltimore. So that was my thought process with Iglesias, just the consistent ABs. And with Jones, I thought he fell too far, probably because he was hurt to end the year, but when he's on, he's really, really good. And so he's now just chilling on my bench too. So it's really a couple of depth picks here that I like.
Jacoby Jones is such a frustrating player. It's like, because we've seen stretches of him be really, really good. And I'm like, wow, did he figure it out? And then he goes right back to like just nothing. And it's frustrating. I like Jacoby Jones too, and I like you said, he did probably fall too far, but once again, he's too frustrating for me to actually own. I think.
And Jacoby Jones more athletic than skill, as we have that bipolar.
Yes.
What do you call it? Way of looking at baseball players. Either they have skill or they're athletic, or they're somewhere in between. So I guess that's the goal, is to be somewhere in between. Jacoby Jones, after all these years, is still more on the athletic side than the skill side. And Jose Iglesias, all I want to say about Jose Iglesias is that 2020 was a perfect year for him. Shortened season, high probability, high variance. So not surprised that he had a bang up year this year. Drew Rasmussen, Brewers pitcher, goes to us. Tell me one thing about Drew Rasmussen, Sean.
He came up and he had, if you look at his just regular stat line, you're like, wow, 5 ERA. That's not very good. But towards the end of that Brewers run, Rasmussen was a very much viewed as an integral part of what they needed to do, especially with Devin Williams, who missed the postseason. And he's got several good pitches. He throws hard, and Milwaukee might have something. They might be doing something over there with their pitching, because we've seen kind of over the last 2 seasons how they're developing some pitchers, Burns, Woodruff, to a degree, Adrian Hauser. I like what they're doing, and I feel like Rasmussen could be, if they trade Hader, and he could be a guy who steals some saves, some holds, or maybe he ends up in the rotation because he had been starting in the minor leagues as well. I thought it was a upside pick at a position of need, which was pitcher, because in my opinion, there weren't too many. I mean, Matthew Allen was still there, which I probably should have picked Matthew Allen, for a Mets homer draft pick, but I liked Rasmussen.
And
I think he was perpetually underrated in the Brewers organizations. Just throwing that out there. I think he's a starter.
I think one of those things with the Brewers is finding prospects, and it's like Bryce Terang was one of the last players I think that went in this draft. I think, or maybe I'm thinking somewhere else.
Bryce Terang,
and it's like he was the Brewers' top. He's like their top prospect, and I think their system is just so not good. I don't want to say they're bad, but they're just so not good that there are some values in their players.
Yeah, they're bad. They're bad.
But we're sitting here talking about how much we like Rasmussen and Terang, so they can't be that bad, right?
There's two players.
Put it this way: there's a certain type of player that the Brewers are good at developing, and we'll leave it at that. And speaking of relief pitchers, Will Smith getting jiggy with it with our team. Sean believes that he's due for a bounce back, and he might get the closer's role next year.
Yeah, I love our relief pitching. Diaz, Clase, and Will Smith. And Will Smith at $5.91, I thought was fantastic value.
And then Trevor goes back-to-back prospects I see here. Juan Then, or Then?
Then, I believe.
Then. Yeah. And then Bryant Packard. I don't know if he's related to the Office character, but those are his picks. Give me one good thing about those two guys you just picked there, right, Trevor?
Yeah, Juan Then's going to explode the next time baseball starts again. He's up to upper 90s with his fastball. Got a really, really nice curveball. He's set to explode. Like, he is going to jump up. I've been told that, some people might compare his skill set to Edwin Diaz. So
makes sense.
Reliever risk there, I think. But again, another high leverage reliever, if that's the risk that's going to happen. He's going to explode. Packard is my favorite prospect in baseball right now, not because he's going to, I don't know. Doesn't have the name recognition as much, but I've always just fell in love with his swing, his offensive upside. You're going to ask me about Tiger prospects later. He's going to be the hitter that I give you, bar none, because he's fantastic. I don't read into the 20% strikeouts from his draft year. And, I think he reads spin really well, smooth stroke with some power. And they're starting to work him out at first base now, which I think is correct to do. I agree with that decision.
And in the 21st round, Sean goes ahead and picks Gilberto Jimenez from the Red Sox. Give me one good thing about Gilberto Jimenez there, Sean.
Well, he's only played in as high as low A ball, but he played 67 games, rookie league for the Red Sox in 18, 384 on base with 16 stolen bases. And in 2019 in low A, 393 on base with 14 stolen bases. Granted, his OBP and average his OBP is really buoyed by his batting average. But he's an 80 grade speed guy. And it's one of those, like, anytime I see someone with 80 grade speed and are consistently hitting, like, he has really no power what to speak of, but stolen bases are always at a premium, especially in a 30 team league. And Jimenez is one of those guys that if the hit tool can at least stay average with the league, then his speed is game changing. So
I think his hit tool should, but also keep in mind what they just did with Duran to unlock a little bit more power too. So that also gives him some more upside.
Yeah.
The 22nd round pick, Gerard Encarnacion. The last time the Marlins had an Encarnacion, it was Juan Encarnacion, I believe. And now we have him on our team. What can you tell us one thing that's valuable about Encarnacion here, Sean?
And this is a player who I had been looking into a little bit, but on Twitter, listening to guys, like, not saying Trevor exactly, but a lot of people kind of in the prospect industry and a lot of people that saw him in the Arizona Fall League in 19 were really saying that there's something to Encarnacion. And then you look at his minor league numbers in 2019. In A ball, he slugged 478, and then in high A ball, He only slugged 372, but I've heard really good things about his power. And from what I've watched, it kind of looks reminiscent of like a poor man's, and I know this is kind of a cop out of, right outfielder, tall, big, strong, Giancarlo Stanton. And it's kind of like just the way he pulls it. The hit tool could absolutely fall apart. He's posted high strikeout numbers and okay walk numbers, but what he did in the fall league in 19, I'm really buying into, because that's against some of the best talent in the country. And if he hit a big grand slam in that game or in that series as well. So I think and like I said, our team needed power. That's one spot where I think we failed in this draft. I failed mainly, but Encarnacion gives us that power, that upside that we need.
And then another homer pick from Trevor, Daniel Norris, followed with was former first-round pick Mickey Moniak. Is that true?
Yeah, and now major leaguer Mickey Moniak. He debuted this year.
All right, so go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah. Well, one thing, you keep saying homer pick, but I don't want to discount the value of people who are going to be getting everyday time that you can get late in drafts just because they're on bad teams.
Yep.
Like I filled my roster with Tigers and with Orioles last year just for the same reason of they're going to get consistent time. It adds depth, especially in a deep league like this. So Norris, I've always loved Daniel Norris. He was a big velo guy until he had a groin injury. Yeah. And his velo should be on the track back. If you follow an arc, and I went through and looked at this, I based it off of the Justin Verlander injury and just on pure velocity. His velo should be back. He showed a little bit last year. I think it should be back, this year, hopefully. And this is the last year I can say that, because I said that last year too. So I'm really hoping that comes back. And with Moniak, I just wanted to, I believe this was my last prospects pick, and I didn't really love any other prospects that were out there. So I thought I would go with the still some upside former 1-1 pick, Mickey Moniak.
Yeah. And he made his debut in 2020, and there could be something, I feel like anyone who makes a 1-1 pick now is going to be, regardless of what they do in the minors, the team's going to at least try and play them in the majors. But I thought, speaking of, you called Felipe out for calling it a homer pick. And it's funny because one of our first episodes that we did, and when we rebranded as the Total Basis podcast, was we made an entire fantasy lineup out of what we considered like the drolls of MLB. And Felipe just loves talking about the Orioles and the Marlins. And we joked because there they were, the Marlins, we made an entire fantasy lineup, and then the Marlins end up in the playoffs. So we never really know how it's going to break. There's a lot of, and that what we left that episode with was there are values on bad teams. And I like to hear you say it without us like prodding you into it. I agree that I think that's a sentiment that not enough people look into.
Yeah, and we always end up saying that the Orioles are just absolute misery for me in the winter, because that's usually the first team I try to look at when I do these rankings this part of the year. And Sean and I, we did an episode on the Orioles, and it was like, hey, they're not that bad, but they still are just make me angry. But they didn't. Hey, they were pretty good this year. They weren't.
Yeah, they held their own.
I thought they would be. They held their own. Yeah. Really quick, Jason Rosario from the Padres. Oh man, the Padres! I love the Padres system. What?
But Red Sox now. Yes, he was a part of the Mitch Moreland trade, and once again, we're going with OBP league. This is a guy that really probably should have gone sooner as a prospect in an OBP league. Walk rates of the last 3 years in minor league baseball, 14.7%, 12.7, and 16.6, giving him well above on base percentages throughout. Some people have said that, he was probably one of the best athletes in all of the Padres system and now the Red Sox system. And it's one of those things, how you mentioned earlier, sometimes you have the skill doesn't match up with the athleticism. Yep. Rosario seems like a guy who they could even unlock more power with, like Trevor mentioned with Duran. He's kind of got that left-handed swing, but he hasn't figured out how to kind of tap into some of his raw power. And if he does that, then he's a guy who can steal some bases. he kind of reminds me of Brandon Nimmo, a guy who I wanted in this league, but we didn't get. So we just got the younger version of him. What are your thoughts on Rosario, Trevor? Is he someone that's been on your radar at all?
Not particularly, but that's because of all the other prospects that were in the Padres system back when I was, beginning of the year when I was looking into it. He's a guy that one of my, his name's Diego Solares. He's a great prospect guy. He's a Padres fan. He likes him a lot. So I'm inclined to believe him. I took Jake Cronenworth after talking to Diego, and people seem to like that pick. So that was in their Dynasty Gurus mock last year. So
okay.
Diego knows what he's talked about. So he seems to like Rosario. I think that's awesome. I was just more focused on Hudson Potts going in that trade to the Red Sox because there were jokes to be made about it. Because they already have 7 of them.
Oh, what? The Red Sox have 7 Potts in their minor leagues? I
mean, not the last name, just the type of player.
Oh,
he's the Bobby Dalbec.
The Michael Chavis, the all plus power
right,
and complete.
Got some pop, no hit tool.
Yeah, Hey, it's like the Atlanta Braves with their pitchers. They have these guys that creep into the top 100 and then kind of fall back out, and they just throw them up against the wall in the major leagues, and one of them's bound to stick.
Yeah.
Ian Anderson stuck.
Yeah. Why trade any prospects when one of them could be good one of these days? And we'll just continue to lose to the Dodgers anyway, right?
You picked Brandon Bielak. Wow. I was wondering. Yeah. I love Brandon Bielak.
In the 24th round, there's Trevor picking Brandon Bielak as well as Corey Abbott of the Cub. Well, since Sean mentioned it, let's start with Trevor's picks. Trevor, why did you go with the way you went here in the last 2 rounds here?
I was just looking for baseball players whose names that I knew and who could help.
It's so true.
Sure.
I mean, when it gets this deep, I mean, you're just looking for especially if you're not tanking and you're not looking for prospects, because, I thought about JB Buskauskas for both of those picks who you guys took. Levi Kelly's a great pick that Taylor Case made there. But overall, I was just, Bielak, I figured would get some time, and I always am inclined to believe that the Astros' ability to develop pitchers and make pitchers who are otherwise just kind of bleh to be good. And I kind of feel that with Bielak. And then Corey Abbott, I'd love to say there was some thinking behind it. I just wrote a scouting report for him like the day before I picked him. And he's got a tool shed of average pitches, I think, and will just be a solid guy. And I think that he'll be up soon. And I found value in that. That's why he's on a bench. He's not even in a minor spot. I think he could provide me some value in the near future and could, be a good value pick for my last pick of the draft.
And then Sean and we went with Michael Baumann from the Oriole. And JB,
I knew at this point, it had gotten so deep, and the draft had been going on for probably a little over 2 weeks at this point.
3 years, 4 years. Yeah.
3. It's been 84 years. Insert meme here. And so I didn't do. I wasn't talking to Felipe about the draft as much at this point. And I knew I was going to go pitcher prospect for the last 2. And I was just like at my wit's end trying to find somebody. And Michael Baumann, I think, is a guy who kind of like Bielak is more than the sum of his parts. And I think Baumann's kind of he's taken a back seat to Grayson Rodriguez and DL Hall, the other premier arms in that system. And it's, I think, to a point where people have forgotten that Baumann's a little bit better than what we anticipate. So I'm hoping that there's some value there.
And there it is. 25 rounds, but 30 team mock draft. Like this
730 picks or 750 picks.
Yeah, exactly. This is my first endeavor into it. Like I said, I don't know if I'm ever doing this again, but it was a very interesting exercise. Thank you guys for having me be a little bit a part of it. And are you guys going to be doing more of these mock drafts in the future?
I'm not sure what TDG is doing. If they do another one, I think they mentioned about doing one maybe closer to spring, which would be interesting to look into, to see how ADPs have changed as news breaks, as trades happen, all that good stuff.
Well, that was awesome. You mentioned that Trevor is a Tigers fan. The Tigers did hire AJ Hinch. Trevor, are you excited for that hire?
Yeah, I am. I know that comes with the controversy of him being suspended for cheating and everything, but I just figure if the Tigers start cheating, they'll get to 500, and I think that'll be fun.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's a great hire. I mean, look, I'm less inclined to be upset about cheating when you get a guy like Hinch who can win. Everybody was going to be going after him. So the other fan bases who are going to say, oh, well, you were cheating. Well, if you had a manager opening, you'd do the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's not trying to dismiss what he did. Obviously, cheating bad. I'm not saying it's good, but in terms of just what you can get on from a manager, I think it's a good hire if you can remove the cheating, which you can't. But I like it.
Yeah. I thought it was a good pick.
Better than Tony La Russa.
It kind of went out. It came out of nowhere because the White Sox were ready to, like, the rumors were, and Sean, if you want to back me up on this, the rumors were that Hinch was going to the White Sox for a long time now, and then here comes the rumors about Tony La Russa, and now they can't be real. They can't be real, and it keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, and now we have the White Sox have Tony La Russa as their 2021 manager on a team full of young guys.
You sound so enthused.
And minority players. I mean, I'm trying, man. It's like I told Matt Bushnell this past week, like, I'm gonna try to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Cautiously optimistic about it. But after listening to the Ben Lindbergh podcast, the Effectively Wild podcast, any optimism I might have had might have just gone out the window yesterday as I was catching up on that episode. As it's very heartbreaking, not heartbreaking, but discouraging. Discouraging is the right word. And I don't even know if I wanted AJ Hinch on the White Sox, but I definitely did not want Tony La Russa. So, well, let me ask you, Trevor, since you're here, I want to pick your brain a little bit more here about real baseball here. If the Tigers would have gone after Tony La Russa, what would have been your reaction?
Why?
But what would have been? What would have been? Oh, that is your reaction. I think you were asking me.
No.
I'm so sorry.
It was the same reaction. It was the same reaction I had when I saw the White Sox going after him. It's like, why? I mean, like, Tony La Russa, great manager. I mean, fantastic manager for when he was with the Cardinals. You know, Cardinals fans love him, but like the game has changed so much in the 9 years since he last managed a baseball game. It's going to be interesting, I think, to see what happens. I thought I heard somewhere that maybe he's taken more of an interest in like sabermetrics and stuff. So maybe he's got a younger mind than we think, but it's certainly an interesting move. And I would have thought that if the Tigers did, I would make a joke about the Tigers doing the Tigers things, but the White Sox are doing the Tigers things now. So I just think it's really interesting.
As someone who's a complete, like, unbiased third party, I think that it's not as bad of a hire as a lot of, I mean, obviously hiring a 76-year-old to manage your team when it's full of really young, of the new brand of players, it doesn't seem like it's going to work. But remember when everyone was criticizing Tony La Russa for overthinking and using analytics to bat his pitcher eighth? And that was not that long ago when people were like, oh, Tony La Russa's batting his pitcher eighth. Why is he doing that? He shouldn't be doing that. Well, Tony La Russa was kind of following the numbers when he did that. And I think it's one of those, it's going to go better than people expect. I think Tony La Russa will let the players be players, but at the same time, they have a lot of young talent on that need to be kind of directed. And I think he's going to do a great job of focusing their energies and talents towards not just being a flashy baseball player and, being exciting, which they are, but being a winning baseball team. And I think if there's a guy that knows how to create a winning baseball culture, it's hard not to like Tony La Russa. Granted, this could all blow up drastically, but I think it's going to go better than expected. One, because of the talent on the roster, and two, because of Tony La Russa's winning, like, just history.
And that's what I wanted to, that's why I'm cautiously optimistic for all the reasons you just mentioned there, Sean. It's like, okay, well, it is Tony La Russa, but all the things you mentioned, that was Tony La Russa from 10 years ago. And I'll even go even further than that. I mean, Tony La Russa from 20, 30 years ago, he did revolutionize the way we we think about bullpen management and pitching management, right? He did all that. I mean, at a time where everybody was still under the thought process that every pitcher should go 9 innings or whatever, La Russa was like, no, I got a really good bullpen. I'm just going to use based on matchups. And I mean, he's the original, take the guy out of the 6th or 7th inning because I got a really good bullpen to use here. And even before that, my favorite thing about Tony La Russa, apropos to 2020, as wacky as it is, he's been accused of cheating and using cameras and trying to steal signals and using technology. So it's like the most 2020 hire for all the 2020 reasons. And then even Jerry Reinsdorf, who's the owner of or the main principal chairman here, he's been known to, he doesn't call it sabermetrics or analytics, but he's been known to have a little bit of analytics in his in his business decisions. I mean, this is a guy who traded away 3 veteran pitchers in 1997 because he thought the better approach to the 1997 season was just to give up and let Cleveland take the division and fight for next year, which to this day, you ask any White Sox fan, a lot of White Sox fans are still apathetic because that stupid trade that happened in 1997. But I mean, so they're analytic, but they're not really analytic. And La Russa already said, yeah, I mean, I'll take Rick Hahn's, suggestions from the front office, but I mean, ultimately it's my decision to make and I'm going to go with my gut. And so that's why I'm kind of down on analytics, but then again, Rick Renteria was down on analytics too, and it's just this whole thing. But anyway, that's I don't know. I'm like 10% optimistic about it at this point, but we'll see. Like you mentioned, Sean, a lot of talent on this team. They're too good and too flashy, like you said, to fail. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if there's a mutiny between the players.
Yeah, that would be the biggest issue, is if there's some sort of Yadier Molina versus Matheny type coup in the clubhouse. Right. But I think they have the talent and they have the flashiness, but they need someone who can instill kind of like this winning culture. And I think La Russa can do that.
All right. So let's see here. I believe Trevor had some prospects. We're going to pocket our prospects and wait till next week. I figured Sean and we talked about prospects, but Trevor, it sounds like you had 2 prospects, 2 little known prospects you wanted to talk about. Is that right?
Yeah, I can talk about as many little known prospects as you'd like.
Well, give me 1 hitter and 1 pitcher. Go ahead.
The hitter, obviously, Bryant Packard. I was just talking about how much I love him, so I won't dive into it too much, but I don't know how little known he is, but I think he's fantastic and a lot of fun to watch. I was watching for Riley Green when he first got called up to West Michigan, and all of a sudden I see this other guy who impressed the heck out of me, and that was Bryant Packard. So definitely a guy to look into, especially if you love prospects. For the pitcher, that's tough to keep it in the Tigers organization. You have the big 3. You have maybe Joey Wentz, who I like, into Dallas Keuchel. But the guy that I'm going to pull out, and the name I'm going to give is like as obscure as you could probably get.
Love it.
And that is Hugh Smith. Hugh Smith was from a 2-3 years ago's draft. He was a 10th rounder out of Division III. He entered college at like 5'10" or something like that. Blew up. He's 6'9" now or something like that.
Jesus Christ.
I have him up on Fangraphs and they have him listed as 6'10". Holy crap.
God.
Yeah. So you watch him and he's as gangly as you think he'd be. He's his all of the stuff that comes with long levers like that are there in terms of inconsistent delivery. He doesn't spin a curveball well, but his fastball, obviously, I think he's still got some room for more extension there, but his fastball's mid upper 90s when his arm is healthy, and he's got a nice changeup. And it's the weirdest thing. It's not really that weird, but I love watching it because he can locate his fastball and changeup arm side as well as anybody. If you want him to go glove side to the other side of the plate, which would be inside on a left-handed hitter, it's questionable at best. So I really like Hugh Smith. He's fun to watch. I've watched every single one of his starts at least twice from 2019. So yeah, he's a fun guy to watch.
So is he kind of like the Detroit Tigers Sean Jelly?
Yeah, but
the 6'11" giant for the Giants. Ironically, yeah. That's what I'm figuring is like they're both tall right-handers with ground balls. I'm looking at his. He didn't give up pretty good ground ball percentage, low home runs. I kind of see a little bit of a same thing here going.
Yeah, kind of. Also, I think Hajeli's got a lot more chance to start than Hugh Smith does.
Okay.
I think Hugh Smith is a reliever, if anything. Hugh Smith is very high volatility, especially given age and the fact that he was Division III. So he's coming in, barely a step above prep guys out of the draft, which is something also. So he's going to be interesting to see how to develop. If you want a name that might be a little bit more relevant, Wilkel Hernandez might be your guy. But definitely, if I have to shout one out, it's going to be Hugh Smith, because I think he's awesome.
This is why I love doing this segment, because I had never even heard of this guy. And now it's someone that I'm going to I'm going to star in Fantrax and like all of my dynasty. I'm just going to keep his little star bubbled. And then in 3 years, when he's not even in professional baseball anymore, but still in the Fantrax database, I'm going to be like, I remember when Trevor came on our show and told me about this 6'10" gangly right-hander. And I was excited about baseball.
No, yeah, I'm putting him on my spreadsheet here as you guys are talking there, Sean. Go ahead, Trevor.
No, he's a lot of fun. Obscure prospects can be very fun, and he is as interesting as they come. Like I said, nice changeup, good fastball, learning to spin a curveball. I think could get there, but I think eventually he'll just become if anything, he'll become just like a middle reliever, but a very tall one.
And you know what's hilarious about this, Felipe? And I don't think we're going to be able to beat it in shows going forward, but he picked a prospect that wasn't even in the Tigers' top 40 according to Fangraphs. That's obscure. I mean, we're talking 40 guys in the Detroit Tigers, and he's not even in there, but we still got excited about it. That's what I love about prospects, and that's what I love about doing this segment, and about having someone like Trevor on, who is a prospects guy. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Trevor. Once again, just to wrap everything up, where can we find you on Twitter, Instagram, whatever you do? Where's the best place to catch you?
Twitter for sure, at Hooth Trevor.
And you guys will not regret it. He keeps me laughing like all the time. It's even if it's not baseball stuff, I am laughing.
Trevor, it's nice talking to you, man.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
And you want to take us home, Felipe?
Yeah, you've been listening to the Total Bases podcast here on Baseball Life Live. You will catch us on all of our platforms, on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, on YouTube, so you guys can see the spreadsheets, get the visuals there. And we'll be back next Sunday. And make sure to catch Dong City on Monday night, tomorrow. Tuesdays, the Audible at Football Life. We do have a bunch of life groups there. I call them life groups, or we call them life groups. But Trevor, we have a bunch of little separate groups on Facebook that go with each sport that we do. So that's why I'm naming them all like now. Ball is Life is the basketball group, and they'll be back next Wednesday, as they're gonna go every other week from here on out during the off season to talk some hoops. And the Audible double duty starters that they are the Tyler Mail of our podcast, really, Sean. They'll go on Friday morning, afternoon, whatever the case is, to preview the upcoming action on Sundays. And then we start all over again Sunday mornings right here, Baseball Live Facebook group, the Total Bases podcast, 10 a.m.
Award show. The award show next week.
The award show is next week. I am excited to hand out some hardware, virtually, so to speak.
They're just pieces of metal.
So yeah, Sean and I were gonna try to do some, both real and fantasy aspect of what do you call it? Just handing out awards, obscure awards, and of course the traditional awards like MVP, Rookie of the Year, and blah, 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 and all that stuff. So for Sean God, I almost did it again, Sean Connery Flannery. One more time for Sean Connery Flannery. Rest in peace, Sean Connery. I am your host, Felipe Milicio. This is the Total Bases Podcast. We'll see you next week.